Welcome to the Big Four Accounting Firms podcast, brought to you by big4accountingfirms.com and the Big Four Accounting Firms YouTube channel. Before we get started, just wanted to remind everybody to support us if you have a chance or if you can. Even $1 helps, and we have a link in the description to a website called Buy Me a Coffee. It's just a way to donate to us and support us. Again, any amount is helpful so that we can keep putting out content. And there's also other ways for you to support us in the show notes to this podcast or on YouTube in the description. In today's podcast, I wanted to discuss some news about Deloitte. It's come out that Deloitte is going to close some offices in the UK. And they're going to close 4 locations in the UK permanently. And Deloitte plans to shut down their Gatwick, Liverpool, Nottingham, and Southampton locations. And these are 4 offices out of 50 in the UK for Deloitte. And this decision is said to impact about 500 employees. What Deloitte had to say is that COVID-19 has fast-tracked our future of work program, leading us to review our real estate portfolio. And this partner, Stephen Griggs, said that all staff based at the 4 locations would continue to be employed by Deloitte. And he says that all of these changes are to the bricks and mortar of the company and not their presence in the regions, which means they're going to be doing the same work in the regions. They're not stopping services. And we already knew this type of stuff was coming, right? Because it's all over the news, and not just for Deloitte or the Big Four accounting firms, that companies are going to be closing their offices. Because if you're going to have these permanent COVID-19 lockdowns and a lockdown for just about everything in the world, then at some point you don't need that office space. And this is especially true for service companies and the Big Four accounting firms, because many of the Big Four accounting firms were already working from home before this. A lot of people worked from home. I've worked in the Big Four accounting firms for a long time, and partners have been, quote unquote, working from home for as long as I can remember. And it started with working from home on Friday because they do so much work, they need time off, right? Or at least that's what they would say. And then from there, in the past few years, it got to where partners would only come in if they had to. If there was a big meeting with their teams, or if there's a big client meeting. It was just the way partners did it. And they worked from home, or they didn't even log onto their laptops. It would just be checking emails over their phones. So this is just another step. It's kind of obvious, especially if the partners are taking pay cuts, employees are taking pay cuts, they're laying people off. They still need to cut costs. But the Big Four accounting firms are going to paint this as a virtue signal. Like right here, we saw Deloitte partners saying that they're embracing their future plan. It was already part of their plan, and they're just accelerating it. I wouldn't believe that. They're doing that to cut costs. Because the other thing you have to remember is these real estate companies who they're cutting their leases with are their clients as well. So they have to be strategic about what they're doing. They have to close offices, probably with their smallest real estate clients, and then they'll go from there. And other companies have already done this. Like Microsoft is letting their employees work from home. They made a big deal about it. And they said that they're moving to a hybrid working arrangement, which means you're going to work from the office a little bit and you're going to work from the home. And there's plenty of other companies looking into this, like BP. So it'll be interesting how this pans out. And I think this is the first of many companies to do this. And I think the Big Four accounting firms are going to do this more and more as well. And there's a lot of skills that you're going to need to learn to adapt to this. And we've covered that in previous podcasts. So make sure to check out our YouTube, because we have a bunch of videos on there about how to adapt during this work from home time. But another fallout from this is the Big Four might try to reduce salaries as a result of this, because when the Big Four give you salaries, and if you change locations, they adjust your salary, and it's because of the cost of living. So the salary and their competitive salaries that they say they are because of cost of living. And cost of living will go down if people don't have to commute on a daily basis, because you won't have to spend as much money on your car and fuel, etc., or your commute. If you live in a city where it's not necessary to have a car, you spend a lot of money on your commute. But people should fight against this. You should fight against it every time the Big Four accounting firms try to cut pay or try to lower salaries, because you still have to invest in your own workspace and your own tools and your own mental health, etc. So people have to realize that that's coming as well, because the big four are going to be playing this from two sides. One, they're implementing their plans that they already had, and this is really going to change the future of work and the way people work, etc. And they're going to take credit for letting working mothers work from home and all this other stuff. At the same time, they're cutting people's pay and laying them off. So as they're putting pressure on the worker, make sure that you're putting pressure as well and not giving in to all of their demands, because it's not going to be worth it. They're going to push a lot of stuff on employees that are working from home. They're going to be like, you can work from home, but here's this checklist of things that you need to do. And you need to be wary of that, especially in places like Australia, where a bunch of weird things related to COVID-19 are going on. People need to weigh whether working from home for the big four is worth it based on the demands that they give you, because there's going to be some demands and requirements that come out of this, and also potentially pay cuts. So that's something else to pay attention to, and we'll probably see more details coming down the line as more big four accounting firms do this. But it's going to be harder to be productive at home and shut off work, because whenever you have access to your work all the time, it's harder to not work. And that's just something to be conscious about. We already know about that, because as working from home has been increasing over the years, more and more of those types of articles have been coming out. But what a lot of people don't know about the big four is working from home is really hard. And it's not just productivity, etc. Because doing your own work at the big four from home isn't necessarily hard. But getting hold of higher ups like partners and senior employees is really hard. That's one thing I'll say about the big four accounting firms. Because big four partners and senior employees have worked from home like a long time, and now they're going to be doing it even more. But however, many partners don't log on to work from home. They require you to schedule time on their calendar, and even when you do that, they struggle to log on, because they tend to do a lot of things. They have kids and they drive their kids around or whatever, but they just don't monitor their laptops. They're not constantly logged into their laptops like other employees. And so it's a lot harder, where when you're in the office, and when I used to work in the office, you had to chase down partners. You had to find a time when their door was open, put your foot in the door and get a hold of them to get things done, to get things signed, to get projects completed. But you can't do that part anymore. So you have to find the best way to get in touch with your partners and to stay in touch and to get in front of them. And this makes completing projects really difficult, because you have to get things signed. You have to get projects signed off, sometimes electronically. And a lot of the partners aren't electronically savvy, so you can send them a bunch of links to things, but that doesn't mean that they'll understand it. So you have to schedule a call or a virtual meeting to walk them through what they need to do. And so that's why working from home in the big four is a little bit more difficult. And people just have to be aware of that. And they have to realize that the burden's on them and not the partner. The burden's never going to be on the partner. So that's where I see difficulties coming in from this. And I'm sure people are already seeing that in their working lives. And I'm sure now that partners are full-time at home, it's only going to get worse, because they were kind of hard to get a hold of as it was when people were able to go in the office. And now with this, it's only being more difficult. But it puts more pressure on them from the standpoint of they have to be more technologically savvy now that technology is the only way they can do things. They can't say that they need somebody there to walk them through it, because that's not possible anymore. But there's going to be a lot of frustrations in the meantime. But I see some difficulties coming out of this. But there's a lot to be adapted to. There's a lot more to learn from this. There's a lot more to come out. So make sure to subscribe to this podcast to get future updates about this. And support us financially through the Buy Me a Coffee link in the show notes. But if you can't financially support us, subscribe to the YouTube channel and like this video on the YouTube channel. Thanks for listening.